let's start. Once we open Unity, we have to create a new project for our Heroes game. So we're going to the top right of the editor, we're going to click on this new button, and we now have to set the project name and its location. So the name is going to be Heroes, and the location is going to be a projects folder right under your home folder. If you want, you can make a folder like workspaces or game projects, but I like to use a projects one. The important thing here is that you don't mix your projects with your documents, images, or in the desktop folder. Let's use this folder. As for the rendering mode, we're going to leave 3D enabled, and the Unity Analytics can be left as off. And after all of these settings are in place, we're going to click Create Project and wait for Unity to open. So before we actually do some work in this Heroes game, we need to understand how the Unity editor works. So let's take a very quick look on this. In the top left of the editor, you're going to see a hierarchy window. And this is basically a list of all the game objects that are going to be present in your game. Right now we have a camera, we have a directional light, but later we're going to have a ground and we're going to have some hurdles we're going to require to jump, okay, and maybe a finish line in the end. If you go to the middle, you're going to see a scene window. If you have never worked with 3D software or, well, you're not very used to this, then let's take a very quick look here. Imagine you are looking through some lenses. This is a virtual world, so we can see the entire world. We can see the camera, we can see the lights. When we add the obstacles, they're all going to be present here. And we can even look around in the scene window. If you right click, you notice that the mouse turns into an eye icon, and if you drag your mouse you're able to look around. Okay, so you can look up, down, you can find the sun, and there are these icons here. And while you are in this looking mode, you can use the W, A, S, and D keys to move around. So if you have ever played first-person shooter games, these controls might be familiar to you. It's basically it's a good practice right now for you to just navigate around, to try to, well, just walk around to get used to these keys. And you can also use Q and E to move down and up. Okay, so notice however that we have a camera icon here. So in this scene window we have two cameras. One is this one that we're using. We as the developers can use this camera that is looking around, and we have a camera in the scene. This is the game camera. So this is the actual thing that is going to render our game for the players. So this is required. We need at least one camera in here. Okay, and if you select it, you can see that there's a camera preview window in the bottom right. It's a bit too small, but if we want to see this better, we can just go to the game window. And when we go here, we can see that the camera is basically looking at the horizon. There's nothing special going on here, but it is something that we're going to change later. And in the right portion of the editor, we also have a inspector window. And this window is responsible for showing information about whatever you have selected. It could be a file, it could be a song, it could be a texture, or it could be the game objects that we have here. So for example, if we select a directional light, for example, and we go to the inspector, there are now lots of data regarding this directional light. Okay, we can see its name here in the top, and there's a list of items right below this panel here. And these items, they are components. They are things that are going to change how our game object is going to behave. The first component, which is the most common one, is the transform component. This is responsible for things like positioning, rotation, and scale. So if we change these numbers, you will notice that the icon in this scene window is moving. Okay, that means we're basically displacing this light source. Okay, we can change it on Y as well and on Z. So notice there are three values for position: X, Y, and Z. X stands for the horizontal axis. Okay, so it's going to move to the right or to the left, like this. Y is the vertical axis, so you can make this light go up or down. Okay, so it's going to look like this. If you change 5, 6, 7, it basically goes up and then down. And Z is the depth axis. Okay, you're going to make it move to the right in this case. So you can use 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can basically just deal with these numbers, okay, change these values to see how things work here. But we're basically taking a very quick look on the coordinate system of Unity. You can use these arrows as well, and you can see that if you drag them, these values, they change here in the transform component as well. We can also change the rotation of an element. So for example, if we rotate the X value, okay, you can even click in this letter and change its value by dragging. You notice that you can make the scene go dark. Okay, it's like we are in sunset mode now because we're changing the X rotation. Okay, so you can just use this to, well, make your scene be somewhat like dawn. So for example, if you use let me see, 5. Yeah, let's use 5. So it's almost the end of the day. Okay, we're going to use this value here. Okay, and we also have the scale one, but it's not working. It doesn't work for lights. It works basically for 3D meshes, which we're going to see later. And we also have a light component, and this is the actual thing that applies light to this game. Okay, so objects are not completely dark. This component contains several settings in here, so you can change what is the type of this light, how its baking going to work, what is its color, intensity. So all of these things can be changed, and you can see the immediate results in the scene window or in the game window. Okay, it's up to you to basically play the game and then tune this to whatever you want. It is very important to experiment while you are developing games and you're developing in Unity as well. In the bottom left of the editor, we have the project window, and this is going to contain an assets folder. The assets folder is able to hold all the files that are going to be used in our games. So all the scripts that we make, all the textures that we require to use, and audio and, well, 3D models, all of them are going to be here. Okay, it's a simple folder. You can even access this folder if you go to your file browser and go to your project folder. Okay. And finally, we have a console window that is going to show us messages regarding our game. So if we want to print any debug information here to check if everything is going well, or if we want to maybe see the errors that happen in our code or some warnings, so some suggestions to improve our code, they're all going to be here in this window. Okay, and now to test this game, we just have to press the play button. Okay, and if you hit the play button, the scene is now live. Okay, notice that the editor is a bit dark and the buttons have become blue colored, and that means the game is running. So right now nothing very interesting is happening. Okay, we can change how the sun and how this skybox is going to look like, where the sun is going to be. So here, for example, and for instance, we can for some reason we can memorize this number here, so we can apply it once we are back. Okay, so we can use 175 for this rotation, but nothing important is happening here. Okay, the game is basically static. We can't move, we don't see a floor, we don't see the obstacles we want to jump. So we need to work on this logic, and even before that we need to apply the virtual reality mode here. So how do we do this? We're going to this website, developers.google.com/vr/unity. This website is basically going to let us know what is this SDK for. Okay, so it's something made by Google, and here you can see all the features, all whatever is going to be used for the integration, and what are the requirements that you need to make this work. And so it is interesting to have a very quick read on this when you are going to make your project. Okay, you can learn a lot by just taking a look on these quick tips here. And in the bottom of the page, you can see this. There's a link for the Unity API reference, so you can learn what are the classes and properties and variables available. And you can also download the VR SDK here. You just click on this link. You're going to be taken to another page that is going to tell you that you can just clone the repository in their GitHub servers. But you can also click here in this GVR Unity SDK button. You're going to be taken to another page, and here you're going to click on Google VR for Unity.Unity package. So you're going to click here, and now we just press the download button, so it's going to be taken to your downloads folder. Once it is here, we just double click it, then it's going to be opened in the Unity editor, and now we are going to see this screen here, import Unity package. So this works like a zip file. It's a compressed file that contains several other files inside it. So we have scripts, scenes, images, audio, prefabs. There are lots and lots of information in this package here. Okay, and well, it's pretty much how any SDK integration and asset packages work in Unity. Okay, it's just one file you normally download from the asset store or other third-party web pages. Then you open it, and then you have to import all of these things. So we just have to click on import and wait for the entire process to be ready. After this is finished, to ensure compatibility with other Unity versions, you might see a prompt for adding another Unity package here. So you just accept it and import it just to make sure that things are going to work as we want them to work. Okay? So after this, we just wait just a little bit for this to be finished. Now we're going to accept this new prompt, import package, and finally we're going to import this. Okay, so now if you look at the project window in the assets folder, there are now two folders, Google VR and plugins. Plugins is going to basically contain all the files needed to make sure that this is going to work on Android and iOS, and Google VR contains what we are interested in the most right now. So we're going to double click this folder to access it. We're going to the prefabs folder, and we're going to use this file here, gvrviewermain.prefab. So a prefab file is a saved game object that contains its own name, its own hierarchy, its own scripts, but the most important thing here is that it's something that is saved, so we can easily reuse this prefab. So to easily reuse this, we're simply going to click, we're going to drag and drop in the hierarchy. And by just doing this, if we press the play button right now, we're going to see a very different game window now. We had one camera before, but now it looks like we have two. This prefab found the main camera that we had in our scene and divided it into two, the left one and the right one. And these cameras, they're used for rendering images in the left eye and in the right eye. And this is the trick in VR games that give us the illusion of depth. Okay, so when we have a 3D objects in here, it's going to be very clear that the 3D effect is going to work when you put in a cardboard device. Okay, and to look around in this scene, you don't have to generate a build and put in your mobile phone. You can just hold the Alt key and move your mouse around, so you can look to the left, right, top, bottom, whatever you want. Okay, and finally, let's hit the play button once again, and notice in the hierarchy window that the scene name is untitled and there's an asterisk here. It means we modified the scene and we didn't save it yet. So it's very important to save this so we don't lose any data. We're going to hit the File button, select Save Scene, and after we do this, we're going to save this as game.unity in the Assets folder. After we save it, it's going to be named here, game, and the game.unity file, which is the scene file, is going to be here in our Assets folder. Okay, so now that we see all of this, we have everything we need to start making our Hurdles game. So in the next video, we're going to develop a very basic scene. So we're going to make a floor that is going to extend through a large distance, and we're going to start and also develop the hurdles. Okay, see you soon. Later on, we're going to integrate some final art in this game. Okay, so some actual 3D models and then some actual textures. But before we work with this, it is interesting to understand how 3D primitives work, and we need to get used as well to moving elements around. So we're going to go ahead and do this. We want to make a very simple track for our game. So we're going to the hierarchy window, I'm going to right click anywhere, and select Create Empty. This is going to create an empty game object. It's a very simple one, and it contains only the transform component. What we want to do is rename this game object as track, and we want to change its position to be 0, 0, 0. When we do this, this track is going to be in the center of our scene. Okay, this is not mandatory, but sometimes when you work with hierarchies in Unity, it is important to think ahead on how the positioning is going to work. So it's important to make these empty game objects that are going to serve as containers to be in the origin position in 0, 0, 0, so we can easily move everything around. Okay, you're going to understand this as we make the game. Now we want to make a very simple floor. To make this floor, we're going to make a 3D primitive while I don't have any 3D models. So we're going to right click in this track game object, select 3D object, and then cube. Okay, and now you can see that you have a 3D cube here. Okay, it's a very simple shape, and it's looking like this. It's in the middle of the world as well, and we need to change a few things. We want to make it to be much bigger than that and thinner as well. So we're going to deal with the transform component. First of all, we want to make this cube to be thin because this is going to work as a floor. Okay, so let's go ahead and rename the cube to floor. and we're going to change that scale from 1 to 0.1. So it looks like a very thin sheet of paper. Okay, you can even make it much thinner than that. Okay, as long as it's not 0, this works just fine. Okay, the scale on X is going to determine how wide the scene is going to be, because our player is going to move in the depth axis. Okay, when we make the code for the player movement, we're basically going to get the player and move it like this. Okay, so it's going to move straight ahead. So first of all, we need to define a little width for this floor. So let's change the scale from 1 to 5. Yes, 5 should be just fine. Okay, it's going to be a bit yeah, it's the right format. And for Z, we can use a number like 10, for example. We're going to scale this later. We're going to check that. So this is going to act as the floor, but we want to change the color of this floor, because right now it's a white floor, a bit gray, but let's make it a bit darker. If you have the floor selected, you notice that among its components, there are two that are very similar. We have a cube mesh filter here, and we have a mesh renderer. So the thing that we want to check is the mesh renderer. A renderer is basically a drawer. It's something that draws something else in the screen. So if you disable this renderer, you don't see the floor anymore. Okay, it disappeared. And that is because the renderer is going to put that in our cameras. Okay, so we can see them appear in our game. And to change the color and how this thing is going to be shaded, we need to deal with the material of it. Since we used the 3D primitive, we created a basic cube in Unity, then it's using the default material. It's something that already comes with Unity, so that is something we can't edit. Okay, it's basically locked for us. So it's a good time for us to make a new material. We're going to our Assets panel, we're going to right click, select Create, and then Material. And let's name this Floor Material, like this. And now, to apply this material to the floor, we can just select the floor again. And here, where it says Element 0 Default Material, we're going to drag our floor material in here. Once we do this, well, nothing changed. Okay, and why is that? Because the floor material contains the default settings. Right now, we can select this material and we can change the color and see we can see it live, that the colors that are changing. Okay, so we can use red, we can use blue, we can use whatever color we want. Okay, so I'm going to use this color here. It's a dark blue that tends to the white, the white color. Okay, so it's going to look like this. And notice that this floor is a bit metallic as well. You can change how metallic or how not metallic it's going to be by using these two sliders here. So you can change this metallic property to 1 if you want to be fully metallic, or 0, so it's a bit smoother. And you can use this smoothness setting to make it a flat color or a bit more shiny. Okay, it's kind of the shininess of this material. I like to use something that's a bit close to 0, so it's more or less an opaque color, flat color. Okay, so we have a dark floor in here. Okay, and now once we have this, we want to put some sides to this track. Okay, maybe add a grass part in here. So there's an easy way to do this. We don't need to create a new cube and then adjust it and then make a new material. Okay, we can just duplicate this floor by right-click on it and selecting duplicate. Okay, and we can change this floor like this. Notice that the scale of the floor is 5. So if we move its position to move its position actually to 5 on X, it's going to be right after the other floor that we have here. Okay, and to make it a bit wider, we can use this scaling tool here. Okay, you can click on this button, and it's going to look like you're editing a 2D image, and you can just drag it like this. Okay, and all the calculations are going to be done accordingly. Now we're going to rename this new floor to grass, and we're going to make a material for this grass. So we're going to right click in the Assets panel, create material, and we're going to name this grass material. Okay, so apply the material, we can also do it in the scene window. We can just drag the material and drop in this grass object that we made here. And now we can add this material to apply a strong green color. Okay, so it's going to look like this. Okay. If you think that these colors are a bit too dark, you can use the directional light and change its rotation to another value. Okay, maybe 125, or you just want to change the intensity. Okay, you can define whatever you want here. You can change the light color instead of being a bit orangish to white. Okay, we just have to tune a few things around to make it look as we want. Okay, and now that we have the grass on the right side, to make the one in the left side, we're just going to duplicate this grass object, and we're going to change its position on X to negative of what we have here. Okay, since they both have the same side, it works properly. It's going to be like this. Okay, so let's rename that as grass left and grass right. Alright, and now to scale this to make it look much larger than it is right now, we can just select the track and change the scale of the track in the Z-axis. Okay, so it's going to, the hierarchy is going to help us with this, because we don't need to scale the children. We can go straight ahead to the track and scale it to whatever value we want. We could use 10 or we could use 100, so it's way larger than before. Okay, so it's going to be a very long track. Okay, we can barely reach its ending, only if we move very fast by holding the shift key. Okay, so there we go. We've developed a very simple scene here, and let's make a very simple obstacle as well. So now we're going to right click in the hierarchy window. We're going to choose create empty, and we're going to rename this as obstacle. Let's make sure it's in the position 0, 0, 0. Okay, so it's going to be right here. Okay, let me just double click the obstacle. It's there. Let's choose this transform tool so you can see it. And now we're going to develop it just like we did with the track. We're going to right click in the obstacle, select 3D object, and then cube. Okay, so I have this simple cube here. We're going to change its scale on Y to half, probably, and move its position on Y to 0.25. Okay, Z is going to be 0.2, so it's going to be thin. And actually Y needs to be way shorter than this because we need to make the base of the obstacle. Okay, so 0.2 there and 0.1 here. Okay, I'm going to put it in this place. Okay, so this is the first base of the obstacle. We're going to duplicate this cube and move it to the positive X value, so it's going to be in the exact other size. Now we're going to make some poles that are going to rise here. So again, we duplicate this cube to make it easier. We change the scale on X to be, let me see, 0.2, and on Y to be 1, so it's going to be standing like this. And now we set the height of this obstacle. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like this, right? Now we move the copy of this obstacle to the other side, this pole. Okay, so we're going to use negative X, and now we make one final cube that is going to close this obstacle in the top. So we're going to duplicate this, change its X position to 0, Y is going to be 1 in the position. Okay, the Y on the scale is going to be 0.2, and on X it's going to be 1, let me see, 2.6. Yes, and we fine-tune this position so it's going to be here. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that these bases, they have to be rotated, so we can do this very easily. You can just select these two objects and change their rotation property on Y to 90. Okay, this makes much more sense physically. Okay, so we have a basic obstacle here. It has a nice shadow. Okay, I think the sun is in a nice position now. And now that we have all of these elements, okay, we can save our scene just to make sure everything is okay here, and we can hit the play button to see our masterpiece. Okay, so we have a very basic scene, and we have the sun there, we have a track, and we have an obstacle right in front of us. So now that we did this, we're going to work on making our player move. Okay, so we want to be able to move forward and then, well, keep walking, and then we're going to work on the jumping effect.